man who made the car a part of our daily lives. He transformed it from a luxury for the rich into a tool that everyone relies on. Henry Ford changed the entire world with one step. Imagine a world without cars, a world dominated by silence, interrupted only by the hooves of horses and the sounds of their carriages. A world where travel was a grueling journey that took days and weeks. Trade was limited, and communication between cities was slow. Even within a single city, travel was difficult, especially in bad weather. At that time, the car was a luxury that only the wealthy could dream of. They were handmade at a very high cost, which made them exclusive to the wealthy class. But do you know who Henry Ford is? And how did he turn the tables? In the heart of Michigan, amidst vast farms, Henry Ford was born in 1863. He was raised in a simple rural environment, but his passion was not for the land and its cultivation, but for the complex machines that had intrigued him since childhood. Imagine, my friend, little Ford spending long hours gazing at a massive steam-powered wood-cutting machine. Its sound and movement were like magic, drawing him into a new world of possibilities. When he turned 12, Ford received a gift that changed the course of his life, a pocket watch from his father. The watch was not just a tool for telling time, but a mechanical puzzle that piqued Ford's curiosity. He disassembled the clock repeatedly and reassembled it, demonstrating exceptional skill in handling intricate mechanisms. Despite his father's desire for him to work on the farm, Ford decided at the age of 16 to head towards the city of Detroit, which was about 13 kilometers away from his farm. The distance may seem short today, but traveling there at that time was a real adventure, a journey into the unknown and the future. When Henry Ford left his father's farm and went to Detroit, did he realize that this city would become the gateway to his grand dream? Or was he just an ambitious young man pursuing his passion? Ford arrived in Detroit in 1879 as a simple mechanic. Detroit at that time was a rapidly growing city, with factories everywhere and people migrating to it from all states. It was a great opportunity for anyone with ambition. In just 10 years, Henry was able to rise to become an experienced mechanical engineer, and then the chief engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company. Yes, Ford worked alongside Thomas Edison, one of the greatest minds of his era. This was a golden opportunity for Ford to learn about innovation and the latest technologies. Despite his exhausting official work, he did not stop working and experimenting in his spare time. He was fascinated by steam engines, which were at the peak of their development at that time. The world was witnessing significant transformations in transportation systems. Historians divide the development of cities during that period into three main stages. The pedestrian city, where mobility relied on walking or using horse-drawn carriages, and the cities were small and crowded. Then came the streetcar city, where trains and streetcars began to spread in cities, leading to their expansion and improvement in urban transportation. However, this was not enough to meet people's increasing needs for freedom and flexibility in mobility. Americans, by nature, preferred greater freedom in mobility. Instead of waiting for train schedules and dealing with congestion in public transportation, this dream of owning a personal mode of transportation drove Henry to work on his first project, the quadricycle, a four-wheeled vehicle considered the prototype of the car. Its engine ran on gasoline. Back then, cars were only for the rich. You had to order a car a year in advance to get it customized to your specifications. So it was really just for the wealthy. Back then, no one imagined that cars would change the world in this way, making people travel farther and faster and opening up new job opportunities. However, Henry didn't see it as a problem. On the contrary, he saw it as the beginning of achieving his bigger dream, making cars accessible to everyone. In 1899, Henry Ford founded the Detroit Automobile Company. But you should know that this experiment didn't succeed at first. The company faced financial difficulties and disputes between Ford and the investors, and it ended up being dismantled in 1901. Ford started making small cars called driver cars. which were prototype models. He hired around 100 workers to help him with production, but things were never easy. Manufacturing a single high-quality car was difficult, let alone producing 100 cars. The problem was that the car parts were not available in one place. He had to source them from different workshops and factories, and then modify them to fit his design. This consumed a lot of time and effort. I mean, imagine, in 2 years they produced less than 20 cars. True, that number is small. But at that time, it was an incredible achievement because each car was handcrafted with extreme care. But even so, that wasn't enough for the investors who wanted faster production and bigger profits. Even though this achievement was remarkable at that time, these disagreements led to Ford's departure from the company. He had a small percentage of the shares and couldn't impose his vision. Success is not always a straight path. But what do you do when your first dream collapses? Do you give up? After leaving the first company, Ford gained valuable experience in car manufacturing and began seriously thinking about solutions to the problem of slow production. He realized that relying on craftsmen to manufacture every part of the car took a long time. He founded the Ford Motor Company in 1903, focusing on designing a car that was simple, efficient, and affordable for the general public. The first car produced by his new company was known as the Model A. It was a small and lightweight car compared to the heavy luxury vehicles that were available at that time. The car was sold at a lower price than many competing cars, but it was still expensive for the working class. From here, Henry Ford started thinking in a completely different way. At that time, the industry relied on craftsmen who did everything for the car, and this took a long time. Therefore, Ford decided to revolutionize the world of industry. He created specialized machines so that each machine would perform only one task. Instead of needing a skilled craftsman who masters everything, it was enough to have a simple worker performing one task, like placing a piece of iron in the machine, for example. But Ford didn't stop there. He noticed that workers might waste time moving from one place to another or searching for tools. So he decided to assign other workers whose only task was to bring tools to the worker, allowing each one to stay in their place. Henry Ford began developing these innovative methods in industrial production when he was working on the Model T. Specifically between 1908 and 1913. At that time, his main goal was to improve the speed and efficiency of the car manufacturing process to make it accessible to everyone. In this way, Ford succeeded in significantly speeding up the production process from 20 cars in 2 years to 1 car every 12 hours and 30 minutes.
October 7th, 1913, it kind of came together, metamorphosed, and the moving assembly line was born, changed the way everybody built cars.
In 1913, at his factory, known as the Highland Park plant in Michigan, Henry Ford implemented the electric conveyor belt system, assembly line. What if I told you that the idea of the assembly line came from a place you wouldn't expect? An animal slaughterhouse, where the meat was transported on a conveyor belt in front of the butchers, each performing a specific task. Here, a brilliant idea struck him. Instead of the worker going to fetch each piece, the pieces should come to him. Just like meat comes to the butcher, car parts should come to the worker. The car production time was reduced from 12 hours and 30 minutes to just 93 minutes by 1914. Can you imagine how things were back then? But at that time, a problem arose. The work became extremely routine, and the worker felt like just a small cog in a massive machine. Imagine that all the worker does is put in a screw or a piece of metal all day. For this reason, many workers started quitting their jobs because they wanted to learn the entire trade. not just perform one tedious task. Ford was a smart man and determined to succeed. He took a bold step that astonished everyone. He raised the wages to $5 a day, which was more than double what any of his competitors were paying in the market. As I said, raising wages to $5 a day was something crazy back then. But Ford had a far-sighted vision. He wanted the workers to be able to buy his cars, and this way, demand would increase, production would increase, and profits would increase. This idea is the beginning of the concept of mass consumption. Henry Ford's invention revolutionized manufacturing and became a model to be emulated in various industries, not just automobiles. In addition to increasing productivity, it contributed to reducing the cost of a single car. The Model T was not the cheapest when it was launched, but it became the most valuable car in terms of the quality and price it offered. With the reduction in production costs and the adoption of Ford's innovative techniques, it quickly outpaced its competitors and became the most popular car of its time, earning the nickname, the car that put the world on wheels. In the early 20th century, after 1920, the spread of personal cars was due to mass production and the innovation of the assembly line introduced by Henry Ford. Imagine 2 million Model T cars were produced annually. At this stage, we moved to the era of cars, the automobile city. Cities have expanded horizontally, significantly, and mobility has become more private and flexible. Life has become fast-paced. The production of the first Model T took longer at the beginning, but it was part of an innovation journey that led to the development of a massive production system considered an industrial revolution. If you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.